Hello, welcome to the Apple Insider Podcast. I'm William Gallagher. Our sponsors this week are Nom Nom and ZocDoc. More about them later. Previously on the Apple Insider Podcast, an entire week ago as we record this, there was this big discussion that I was not part of. Mike Worthley and Wes Hilliard. It wasn't as simplistic as one for and one against the Apple Vision Pro, but it bordered on that, and it got very deep and very philosophical. If you haven't heard that one, rush to listen to it. After this one, obviously. But I'm back to ask practical, serious questions, and I've got Wes, who Wes Hilliard, I think it's fair to say you were the more pro Apple Vision Pro user. Is that right?
Yes, to the contention of some listeners, I had a few people writing in saying, why is Mike such a sourpuss? But honestly, though, I think it was good to have someone on who wasn't as exuberant about Apple Vision Pro as I was, because it really challenged me, and I like that. But, he didn't change my mind, but he definitely made me explain my case, which is always nice.
That's great. Actually, I love it when people change my mind, but these days, whoever changes their mind about anything, let's not go there. In all of the philosophical discussions about it, one thing I thought was really key, the thing that kind of made me sit up when I was listening, was Mike just asking you, were you wearing the Vision Pro while you were talking? So 1 week on, Wes, are you wearing the Vision Pro as we record this?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I've got my show notes and Safari here, and my desktop out in a snowfield in Yosemite. So,
right. And you're shown, so they're all spread around your room as well as in Yosemite. Do you have to turn your head to see something?
Right now, no. Everything's in front of me.
What I don't get is how clear the text is on things. I presume if you put something far away, it's going to be harder to read. But generally speaking, is Vision Pro text as sharp as you would hope?
It's as sharp as looking at an iPad. I guess if you really wanted to pixel peep and try to squint, you could probably say that, I don't know. It's clear. I think they're doing something specifically with text rendering here that just makes it extra clear, because there's nothing. It's just text. I don't know how else to say it. Like, especially in native apps, I think you get a little more degradation depending on what you're looking at. Safari notes, those are crystal clear. They're native apps. Some third-party apps struggle a little bit, especially because some of their text is just so small. And, of course, you can resize text in some apps, so that helps. But there's just certain things that kind of like, yeah, this doesn't belong here, so this doesn't look as well as it should. I've heard some reports of people saying the Mac mode is a little blurry and weird. I would say it depends. If it's right here in front of my face, the foveated rendering, I think that's maybe what people are encountering. The desktop is in full 4K in front of you, but if you look around the desktop, if it's big enough that you need to move your eyes to see the whole thing, parts of it are going to blur out. So
I see.
People could be encountering that, because foveated rendering is what makes Apple Vision Pro work and able to have such a dense display. But no, I haven't really encountered anything that says, wow, this just doesn't work, or I just can't read this, especially with these inserts in.
Right. Every time I talk to you, my mind goes off in 3 different directions based on things you said. I'm interested in the inserts. I'm interested in the Mac display thing. Let's cover off something I don't understand. I don't know what a foveated display is, and I keep reading the word. Can you explain that to me?
It's pretty straightforward. A lot of headsets do it. The technology started coming into play, I believe, with MetaQuest 2, PlayStation VR 2. Basically, use eye tracking inside of the headset to see where the person is gazing at the display, and you're only rendering at that location. But it's all so fast that you can't tell unless you turn your head very quickly to a display that's just completely off screen, and then you're kind of tricking the computer into catching up, like a video game, not rendering the texture behind the character or something. But yes, basically, because there's so many pixels, they're about the size of a blood cell. It can't run all of them at 100% all of the time, full resolution, perfect display. It just can't do that. But way foveated rendering works is basically how the human eye works. You're also not seeing your entire world around you 180 degrees at all times. The further you get away from the center of your pupil, the blurrier and more out of focus things are. And you just don't realize it because your brain just kind of makes it go away.
I did actually notice, even during, Apple did this really nice guided tour video of it. There was one moment when the fella had put his headset on and he moved away. The woman who was, I've forgotten her name, but she's like really senior in Apple and was teaching him through it. She seemed to me to be just a tiny bit distorted, and I thought that was sub-Apple, really, but it's just normal enough that you don't notice it, unless you're disco dancing or something.
Well, you're also looking at a recording of a 3D video on a 2D plane.
Yeah, true. Right.
I haven't really noticed any distortion. So I keep calling back to this because I haven't really experienced the Meta Quest 3. My only experience with other headsets is PSVR 2, and that's really just for gaming, and the environments for that are pretty open and clear, and I'm not staring at other people. You're usually in an immersive VR environment. So I really need to get a hold of a Meta Quest just to try it out. But from what I've seen, there's a lot going on there that's just very different from Apple Vision Pro, and we can get into that in a second because Mark Zuckerberg had some comments. But there was a medical study, I believe at Stanford, we need to get that link in the show notes, that I wrote about literally, I think the day or 2 days before Apple Vision Pro launched, so I didn't even have the thing to compare to, and neither did they. The whole study was on Meta Quest, and they had a video of them, because they recorded from within the headset, of them walking around and doing stuff, and it's just so starkly different from my experience with Apple Vision Pro. They would move their hand a fair distance in front of them, arm's length in front of them, across a pattern space, and it would warp around their hand because it's trying to do the hand occlusion around real environments, which doesn't make sense. Your hand's already there. Why do you need to occlude it? Yeah. As they turn their head, you would just get these gashes and warps and tears as the headset was trying to catch up. They wrote about the psychological effects of this kind of disruption and distortion, the warping of people's faces, the blurring of environments, as how it would affect the human brain and make you either sick or lonely or what have you. There's all these effects, and of course they couldn't test it on Apple Vision Pro, and I was just kind of got it in my head. I was like, man, am I going to put Apple Vision Pro on and just see this distorted version of reality? I'm not sure what to expect, and I get it. And yes, it's a video camera filming the world around me. We've discussed this at length. It's still a little noisy depending on how bright the room is. If you're in the middle of a Apple Store glass cube with the sun shining on it, it's going to be starkly clear. But in my office, it's going to be a little muddy. But overall, it's a well done recreation. The depth, the not field of view as in how far I can see around my eyes, because it's only about 100 to 107 degrees, somewhere in there. But the field of view as in my natural eyesight sees the room this way with this curvature, all of that fits so well. And of course there's going to be distortion. If I try to drink a water bottle, or right now the microphone in front of my face, if I don't have a scene on, it looks crazy because there's two cameras. Basically, it's like you're looking at the end of your nose, and there's just it's warping around the cameras trying to understand this object that's too close to you. And that still occurs because you can't fix for that. That's just a natural environment effect. But the stuff I was seeing in this MetaQuest video, and people can chime in who've tried it, it was a little disconcerting, and I'm glad to see that Apple Vision Pro solved for a lot of those issues, the reality distortion kind of stuff.
All right, I think I'm down to two ways my mind's going. One of them is, do you mind, Mike, asking you, I'm basically interrogating you about Apple Vision Pro, and to you, well, I've had it for weeks now, it's normal. Are you still, is it still a new toy to you as well, do you think?
So things have been so busy on my end that I've had really one free day with it. I had a Saturday where my partner had to work, and I was actually just able to sit at home and try the thing out on my own without it being a work device, and that was interesting. And I need more of those days. I'm champing at the bit here because I just haven't had enough. I've been using it for work, so when it's on for work, it's work. I'm not playing around. I'm in Safari, I'm in drafts, I'm writing content, I have things I need to do. So, and maybe I'm checking out an app, or I'm looking into some feature or I'm reviewing something. But again, it's not a toy at that point. It's my work. It's my job. So I haven't had a lot of opportunity outside of that. And for work, it's been great. And I'm still like using it every day on my shift. I'm coming in and I'm thinking, well, I need to get a couple things done. And these social apps are only on my iPad, so I don't. Even if they were available on Vision Pro, I'm not really that interested in having threads on my Vision Pro. So I want to go manage that content, to check into work, check all that kind of stuff on the iPad first, and kind of whittle away at what needs to be done outside the headset. And then I'm sitting there thinking, all right, so when am I going to put this thing on? And it's usually about an hour and a half into the shift. I'm caught up enough that, all right, now it's time to focus, get focused work done, write news, write a review. And so I get into the headset and go from there. So it's usually on me about 6 hours of shift with breaks. And I haven't lost interest in it. It hasn't become, well, I'm just going to work from my Mac today, or, well, let's just get the iPad, or I don't want to touch this thing. Honestly, the minute I take it off and it's time for me to wind down from work and go to bed because I work a late shift, I'm still thinking, maybe I should go get it so I could watch an episode of TV or try this thing out or try that thing out. And I have to force myself away from it so I don't stay up till 3 a.m.
Wow. I think the obvious question is about the comfort after that amount of time. But where my mind goes is, if it is not the thing you're writing about or reviewing, do you forget that it's there and you're able to concentrate on whatever it is you're actually doing? Has it become a normal tool to you yet?
More or less, yeah. There's always going to be a presence, especially at this size, at this weight, of it being on your face. It's as I described the mic, as I wrote in the review. And if you guys haven't read it yet, go check out the review. I think this is one of my better ones. But I wrote about how your nose isn't there until someone tells you that it's there, and suddenly it's in your field of view. It's kind of like that with Vision Pro. Though I'm still wearing the solo knit band. I just never tried the dual band again. It was just too uncomfortable. Too many pressure points on my head, like a baseball cap you've put on too tightly. The solo knit, I've noticed. So I've been trying to figure out why people have a problem with this band. I don't know. It's not, of course, going to be universal. Everything's going to fit everyone differently. But I did notice that someone was mentioning ear curling. They were worried about ear curling with the knit band, and I'm like, the knit band's nowhere near my ears. The strap's going over the crown of my head. It's a very light diagonal, but it's not sitting horizontal, like parallel to the earth either. So maybe people are just wearing it incorrectly, and I think that's on Apple. They should do a better job of showing people what to do with this thing and how to wear it. But anyway, as far as fit and fatigue goes, it's been fine. It falls away into the background, and as long as I'm in the moment looking at what I need to do, editing a photo, reading a story, whatever, playing a game, it goes away. And I try to recall moments when I'm like, am I noticing its weight? And of course, as soon as I think about it, I notice it again. So it's one of those things you can't really, it's like trying to catch the refrigerator light turning off, right? As you shut the door. You can't really put it into words because it's not there until you're thinking about it. So Schrodinger's cat is there too much weight, too much pressure until, you're actually thinking about it.
All of this, I feel really quite guilty now about what I'm going to do to you next, which is, but it has to happen. News is news. I'm afraid you've bought the wrong headset. Mm-hmm. The Meta Quest 3 is the better product. Mark Zuckerberg has told us this. So are you going to trade in your Apple Vision Pro perhaps, or perhaps maybe send it to someone in the UK over here who would look after it for you?
This is a curious video. Did you watch it?
No, I saw the opening screen and there was just something strangely wrong about it. It seemed badly filmed. It was like looking at a teenager, not a billionaire CEO. And I just had a feeling it was not going to be as educational as I might hope.
It was one of his better videos, his more human moments. He definitely didn't come off as a robot like he has in courtrooms or interviews. But the entire thing was filmed with the Meta Quest 3's pass-through. He wanted to point that out. And I noticed one of the bigger sins of that video was the windows are curved, like a curved display like you have, William, and I'm just like, no thank you.
Okay.
It's just not something I'm interested in. But the UI in there just was kind of egregious to me, but maybe it'd be different if I was wearing the headset. I don't know. But of course, they didn't show any text on the display. The website they had open was for a Green Day concert with these giant letters on the screen, and then they had another app open for generating AI images, and that's all you saw on the headset while he was interviewing, and the UI quickly went away after Mark mentioned, like, oh, we're recording in the headset. Look, he has floating windows too. Look how crisp it is, or whatever, just trying to say, we can do this too, kind of thing. I just noted that they didn't show us any text or anything of particular interest, and I noticed the menu bar at the bottom was just again an odd choice. It felt like they took a Mac dock and put it floating in the air, just not how I would envision this thing. But anyway, it's a good video and it's a good argument. I mean, coming from the CEO of Meta, of course he's not going to come out there and say, well, we failed, Apple did it, we're just going to give up, we're going to go home. No more Meta Quest. He did bring up like eye tracking needs to come back to Meta Quest, so he's teasing the Meta Quest 4 is going to have eye tracking or whatever. But overall, not terribly out of place. Like, yes, the Meta Quest is going to be a mass market device. It's much cheaper at $500, but it's also a completely different object. I think he got it right. People are using it to get up, move around, and play games. They're doing that silly metaverse stuff. The people who are buying it want to join that metaverse thing that they're doing. Whereas, like, I use my PSVR to play video games, and I want to use Apple Vision Pro for that. There just aren't that many available yet, so we'll see how that goes as more apps and stuff come out. But I think they're just completely different classes of devices, because if the text isn't clear and the world is warping around me and the pass-through isn't as high quality as Apple Vision Pros, I can't see using the Meta Quest the same way I do Vision Pro. I think it's a fundamental thing. And of course, the way Mark Zuckerberg categorizes it is as, we're the best at everything. This is the best headset you can buy for the things people use headsets for. But here's the thing. His headset, until now, was the only headset you could buy to do these things. So the only things you can do are the things that it's designed for it to do. We've never had Apple's paradigm before. So we have to see what Apple's headset's going to be good at versus Meta Quest. And I think we're already seeing that with work, text entry, and stuff like that.
You mentioned that I have a curved monitor. I have a 49-inch Samsung monitor. I think if you had 20 of them side by side, it'd become a full circle. But what I like about it is not that it's curved, it's just that wherever I turn to look at it is flat in front of me. Mm-hmm. So I forget that it's curved until I walk into my office and see this crescent moon shaped thing on my desk.
So MetaQuest, at least its window for that Chrome browser or whatever was very, very curved. That could have just been an effect of him being on the edge of it. I don't know, but it's just starkly different from my experience with Vision Pro. That's why it stood out for me, because everything in here is nice and flat with 3D objects.
You said he pointed out that the interview was recorded with see-through. So he was wearing the headset filming someone else, or someone else was...
Some guy... They were in the brightest room in the world, so he had a sun-facing living room with like a outdoor patio with floor-to-ceiling windows with the sun coming through. So, by the way, that's how you ensure that there's zero noise on any camera. You could probably get an iPhone 4 and record beautiful video in that environment. But anyway, he pointed out that his colleague was recording him, and they quickly panned around. It was the only break in that video. The rest of it was filmed from the headset, which was kind of a muddy orange hue because he must have had some kind of warm temperature lights, or it must have just been that time of day. Maybe it was a little bit more of a golden period for the sun. But the color coming through the headset was very warm, and you could tell that, yes, he was in his living room, and it was a decent picture, but it was also very muddy. Like you could tell the difference. I could immediately tell the difference between that and, say, the Vision Pro, just from a resolution standpoint. But again, we're looking at a video recorded with a headset being played through a social media website, so who knows what it actually looked like.
That's a good point. There's one aspect of this that actually I might know that you might not, because I wrote the article. This thing about the see-through thing, it's a firm called Optofidelity, benchmarking test equipment manufacturer, who tested Apple Vision Pro and MetaQuest 3, also MetaQuest Pro, and I've got to get the letters right, HTC Vive XR Elite. Or is that HTC VIVE XR ELIT? One of those. Anyway, something like that. And what they did is it was called photon-to-photon measurement. Shine a light into it. What's the time from when the light's turned on to when it is received by the cameras, whatever, the receptors within the Vision Pro? When would the user see it? How long would that take? If I told you that MetaQuest 3 did slightly better than... MetaQuest Pro did the best out of these. Came in around 40 milliseconds. Apple Vision Pro was slightly different, though. Would you like to guess how fast Apple Vision Pro was?
Well, I'm looking at the graph now, and yes, 11 milliseconds is impressive, and that's within Apple's range, of course.
Right.
And again,
that was my big surprise. I was building up to that. You just looked at the data.
Well, I think what's interesting here is this goes back to my discussion of, again, I haven't had hands-on time, but from what I've heard from other people, what I saw from that Stanford study is the distance and time between recording the video and getting it to your eyeballs is very important. It's a huge part of what plays into the reality breaking and how, and motion sickness and basically psychological and physiological symptoms and issues of wearing a headset can be solved with that very fast millisecond pass-through, coupled with a high refresh rate, which Apple also has at 100 hertz peak. But yeah, looking at this, it makes a lot of sense. If those are coming in at around 40 milliseconds, let me put it this way. It's still pretty fast, but you don't want like a 40 millisecond lag on a video game online because you'll die every time kind of thing. Like that's the kind of difference we're dealing with here, where snap decisions, your eye is able to take in information so quickly, it turns into a problem pretty quick.
Funny you should mention games, though, because I told you there were all sorts of things I wanted to ask you about, and quite unusually for me, one of them is games, because as we record this, Apple has just announced 12 new native spatial video games for Apple Vision Pro, and I'm surprised to say, for a brief moment, I was quite excited. And then I realised the thing I was excited about was there's a chess game in there. So you could play as if using a real chessboard. And I could just get a real chessboard, couldn't I? Do you know about the games on Apple Vision Pro? And you are a gamer. Does Apple Arcade's offerings make you tempted to play there?
Well, I've played a few games in Vision Pro. Most of them are 2D right now. And this story... let's see. It's funny because most of these were already here. And it looks like... No, actually, I think this is it. I think these are all already here in Vision Pro, because I've been through the list about 10 times trying to figure out what's available.
I should say, Apple pointed out in the same announcement that there are 250 iPhone and iPad games that you can already play. So is it that these are new versions of it, or did they just get them out early and hadn't mentioned them yet?
So yeah, that's basically what happened here. A lot of these games have been slowly rolling out or were available when Apple Vision Pro launched. Synth Rider specifically, I've played a few times. This Game Room game is interesting. But the rest, like What the Golf, I think works better as a 2D window because they're basically just building an AR mountain that you play on, and I feel like that game works better with touch or a controller. If in that case, the pinch and look metrics don't really work in a game that requires that much precision, because you're kind of throwing a ball or object across a field into a golf hole. So it requires a little more precision than just looking and pinching, and maybe you could get good at it, but I just found that it wasn't that well done. Yeah, there's things you can do here. I mean, it's fine. There's nothing here at launch because, again, no one had it, and especially game developers aren't going to be able to properly port a game. You can't just throw something built for a different VR headset into Apple Vision Pro and just expect it to work. It just doesn't happen that way. So I expect this to get a lot better over time. Paid games are going to be a thing in Apple Vision Pro in the App Store. Apple Arcade's fine. It's always been kind of just fine. But we'll see what happens when other developers outside of Apple Arcade start releasing games for $10, $20, $40 inside of Apple Vision Pro.
This episode of the Apple Insider Podcast is brought to you by ZocDoc, the free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. Now, we have such a different healthcare system where I live in the UK that I simply had no idea how complicated and just plain hard it is to find a doctor in the States, or how then you might find one near you, and they might even have an appointment available soon, but then they don't take your insurance. It is unbelievable to me that sometimes you can't find out they won't take your insurance until you've been to the appointment. So, if I were in the US and I needed a doctor, I would turn to ZocDoc. It finds you the doctors you need, where you need them, and it's always completely clear whether they'll take your insurance or not. And just to add to all this, it's not just simple. ZocDoc is fast. You can get same-day appointments, but even the typical wait time is only 24 to 72 hours. Go to ZocDoc.com/AppleInsider and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/AppleInsider. ZocDoc.com/AppleInsider. And thanks to ZocDoc for supporting the Apple Insider Podcast. I did notice there's a Lego game in there, and all I can think of is, when did Lego get so complicated? It used to be a couple of bricks, now it's make your own Harry Potter Star Wars combination thing, and virtually as well. So, yeah, I'm not the market for this sort of thing. But actually, that thought there, saying what will happen when other developers get to it, there is this claim that there are people even within Apple who were saying you should wait for Apple Vision Pro 4 or something like that before you should get into it. And you sound much more positive than that, even with version 1. Do you think that's really what Apple thinks internally?
Well, Apple isn't a monolith. Everyone has their own opinions. This is one of those people familiar with the matter stories from Mark Gurman. And generally speaking, his information is good. Like he has good sources. So like I can honestly believe that there are people he's spoken to at Apple who say, yeah, version 4 is the one to go for. But honestly, I've said the same thing in casual conversation. It makes sense. We're like with the iPhone, it didn't blow up with the first one. It didn't blow up with even the next couple. It was iPhone 4 when it became what you'd call mass marketable, and it wasn't until the iPhone 6 when it got bigger that it became what you call mainstream. All right, it really blew up. But iPhone 4, I think, was definitely the tipping point because it got onto those other carriers and whatnot. You could debate this all day. When did the iPhone actually blow up? But I think for Vision Pro, it's a similar story. It's good now, but it's still the worst version we're ever going to have. And I think they're going to quickly iterate on it. What do we have to wait for version 4 to get the optimum version of it? Maybe. We have no idea. We haven't even seen a hint, even in rumors or patents, of what version 2.0 could look like. It's so far away. Like, if it really is going to take till 2026, 2027 for version 2 to come out, we're so far away from it, it could change 10 times between now and then. Mm-hmm. So we have no idea what a version 2 looks like, let alone version 4. So this is just fancy prognosticating. I wouldn't take it too seriously. It's one of those things, if you want it now, get it now, because it's not going to change in like 2 to 3 years, unless Apple pulls a fast one. But all signs point to a much later release. I don't think we're going to come out in like WWDC and have Apple come out and say, all right, well, everyone who bought one in February, thank you, and here's the next one.
Suckers.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
It'd be kind of funny, though. Tim Cook saying, this is the best Vision Pro we've ever made. I could say that, good morning, and all that stuff. Yes, okay. Yeah. I'm now hoping for that, just for the theatre, the drama of it. Plus, of course, the thing is, you mentioned patents there. We know there are 5,000 patents in this thing, and it amuses me that every week I look at patents and I must have missed at least hundreds of these. So now I'm studying ever closer. But what Apple, without question, clearly forgot was the health of our heads. Because I've been reading, you're in trouble. Vision Pro is going to fry your brain off, isn't it, really?
Well...
And you'd think they'd think about that with 10 years and billions of dollars of testing. I mean, come on, Apple.
Well, thankfully, Mike's acidity comes in handy because he got this story and ran with it. Yeah. There are a group of people, I think at least 5 on the planet, who believe that everything's trying to kill you, especially radio waves. That's just not really how things work.
No, it's Taylor Swift that's trying to do it, really, I think. That's the backup conspiracy theory. Yeah.
That might be it. And honestly, the cross-section of those two beliefs are probably the same person. No, seriously, though, it's fine. Everything that's ever existed since radio, there's been at least one person out there saying it's going to kill you, it's going to control your brain or fry it or what have you. We had this whole thing in France about the antennas on the iPhone, whatever, 12.
The 12, yes.
Just
radio.
Absolute, utter nonsense.
Well, you say that. Have you ever listened to BBC Radio 1? I mean, it could be. That means nothing to you at all. I'm sorry about that.
No, I mean, I'm aware of the radio, but no, it's it's one of those things, I guess. You have to really push hard away on these things. It's like flat earthers. Like, the science just goes so far against this structure of ideologies that it's just wrong. Like, science can be proven wrong. Like, that's the whole point of science. Like, we learn and grow and change as, we discover gravity or whatever. But, it's fairly clear that radio waves below a certain magnitude just cannot penetrate the skin or affect your soft tissues in any way. And every time Apple comes out with a new product, it's the next thing that's going to kill you because its Bluetooth signal's too strong. And it's like I said, it's nonsense.
Well, people swallow AirTags. That's Apple's fault.
The AirPods one is always, mistaking it for Tylenol or whatever. It's just, I just hope it doesn't happen to you. It's one of those things. I guess it can happen to anyone. Just, I try not to make fun of those people because I guess I can understand things can just go wrong. People make mistakes, but it does seem a bit absurd.
Well, actually, my first thought is to think it ridiculous. But if you're in pain or something and you need medicine and it, you could see, okay, you've changed my mind there. I like that.
Maybe don't buy the medicine bottle case for your AirPods Pro.
Okay, that's true. I'm very conscious of the fact that we talk a lot about Apple Vision Pro, and it's purely the fact that I can't get one to try. It's all selfishness. I want to know all these details for it. But there are other things, and there's a lot of stuff going on.
Before we move on, I guess we had one more Apple Vision Pro related thing because it's the topic of the day. Just real quick, the whole if you're listening to this now, you've no doubt seen stories from The Verge, and then I think they kind of began the avalanche, and then everyone followed suit of, oh no, Apple fans are returning Apple Vision Pro in droves. It's a failure and no one likes it. This one guy at 9 to 5 Mac, his eyeballs falling out, and someone's head exploded, and it's just terrible. And there are car accidents and death and famine, and dogs and cats living together.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, I just wanted to point out, it's fine, guys. The reason why everyone's returning their headset, quote unquote, everyone, is because we're at the end of the 2-week return window, and a $3,500 object you're kind of meh about. Probably worth returning. If you're not excited by this device, by all means, take it back. Like, no one needs you to keep this, especially Apple. They have all the money they need. And that just means the refurbished store is going to be all the sweeter here in a couple of months.
Oh, yes. Oh, I like the sound of that. Okay. In that case, thank you to everyone who's bringing it back and saving us a buck.
Yeah. I've spent about 50 hours, maybe 60 now. I don't know. I'm in the range up there, 6 to 7 hours a shift, 14 days since it came out, a dozen hours on a weekend once. Yeah. And again, taking numerous breaks. I'm washing my face every day. I'm keeping the headset clean. But I just want to point out, no rashes, outbreaks, headaches, migraines, blood vessel popping, not even redness of the eyes. I'm good. Maybe I'm just the exact designed human for this thing, and other people are just outside of that equilibrium. I don't know. But it can be done. But from what I can tell from these headlines is Apple Vision Pro is dangerous. That's the takeaway, at least from the headline. Maybe the text is more clear and I'm not bothering to read these stories because I already know the content. It's just don't be scared by the scare tactics, because as far as we can tell from retail people we've spoken to, it's a normal return rate for any product. And you do get a extensive questionnaire from Apple when you return one. So they really want to know why you're returning it. It's like, what happened? What went wrong? What do you not like? So.
Do you think that's genuine research or just trying to put a barrier up to stop you returning it?
A little bit of both. Social anxiety is a very strong drug. Maybe not a $3,500 drug, but...
No. Okay. As I say, I can't buy Vision Pro. I'm in the UK. There's rumours it will come here very soon. But £3,500 would also get me an extremely nice Mac Studio. But I wouldn't buy a Mac Studio now because it's not very long since it was last updated, but there's now the M3 processor, which is not in the Mac Studio yet, is in some other things. Apple Insider's just published a prediction of what's likely to come out in March, and unfortunately it's saying the Mac Studio M3 version is not very likely and things. Do you know about this story, and can you reassure me? I'm in with a chance.
Okay, so it's so funny because I keep track of rumors at Apple Insider. It's kind of one of my tasks. So Mike just messages me a few days ago, just send me a list of everything coming out this year. Of just like approximately. I was like, how much research do you need? It's like, the approximation, just kind of give us an idea of what to get into while I try to assign this thing. So now we have this story, I'm assuming derived from that list. So in March, it does look like it's going to be an iPad heavy announcement. If we see it at all, we could see every iPad updated. I'm assuming at least iPad Pro and iPad Air. And if we don't see the iPad mini and iPad 10-inch, that'll be in the fall. That's my assumption on the split here. But at the very least, we'll get the new iPads. We're looking at the MacBook Air 15 and 13, both getting M3 processors. Not too much else. Maybe the M3 Pro, Mac Mini. But to answer your question, the Mac Studio won't get touched until we get M3 Ultra, which usually happens at WWDC. So you're looking at closer to a June, July release window for a new product like that.
Right. So that's into the next tax year here. Okay. Well, nope, I've got no answer to that. I'm just going to have to wait.
I got to say, is there anything in that March event that sounds like something you would want to purchase? An upgraded iPad, iPad mini?
There are things that are tempting me. When you said iPad, the new iPad Pro, I really like my iPad Pro, but I'm conscious that since I bought a 14-inch MacBook Pro, I've used the iPad markedly less. So I don't think I can mentally justify it. I would wait to see what was new about it and also what the price was, although I imagine it's the same or worse than ever. They're not really likely to lower the iPad Pro price.
It'll definitely go up. And the accessories are going to be astronomical. $499 for a keyboard, I'm calling it here.
Okay.
Yeah, that like aluminum enclosure keyboard. Come on, it's already $350 for a piece of plastic. You're telling me it's not going to be like $500? Guarantee it. You can buy a Mac Mini for this keyboard. We'll see. It'll be an interesting event.
I remember not so very long ago when you were the iPad man, and now that's gone. You're the Vision Pro man. So you're not even tempted by the new iPads, are you?
Oh, I have no idea what this year looks like for me. Financially speaking, if I had it, I would immediately buy it. We're going to see if everything lines up. There's a potential for that to line up, just like with Vision Pro. This is a lot of expensive stuff at once. It normally doesn't happen this way. I mean, I pretty much didn't buy anything in 2023, for example, just because Apple didn't have any products that tempted me. So, other than, I think, HomePods at the beginning of the year, that was like the most I spent on Apple products. But yeah, if the iPad Pro gets updated, it's going to either be purchased or be waiting to be purchased, because I still have the M1 iPad Pro. I didn't get the M2. And yes, while Vision Pro is still an oddity, it's going to take over my workflows, especially at home, and it's only going to get better from here as more software releases. The iPad still holds a special place. I'm still going to be using it. It's a perfect opposition to the Vision Pro. I had a Mastodon thread I wrote, basically saying, I think I can see Vision Pro and iPad Pro on equal terms. They're both equipped to be a computer alternative. And when I say that, it doesn't mean everyone on Earth can go out and buy a Vision Pro and get their work done. That's not what I'm saying. There are just a number of people who own a computer that's probably overkill and can probably do everything just fine on an iPad, and those people can probably do everything fine on Vision Pro, and that's only going to improve as we see more software. But I think they're distinct forks from each other. They complement each other, but obviously they can't be used together. I can't put on Vision Pro and use an iPad. It just doesn't work. So the way I see it is, I still need a computer to take out and about, and I'm still allergic to the Mac. So I want to have the latest iPad Pro with the new fancy keyboard and Apple Pencil, and that's still going to be my travel computer. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to travel without Vision Pro, but I'm also not going to sit in a cafe with Vision Pro on, if you get my meaning. So I think there's places and times when having a laptop-style computer like an iPad Pro and a keyboard is going to make them even more sense than Vision Pro. And Vision Pro is going to be my personal but private computer. I'm not going to use it out in the open in the middle of the road or inside of my Cybertruck trying to drive down the highway. So,
okay, just give me a moment to absorb this allergic to Mac thing you keep saying. This episode of the Apple Insider Podcast is brought to you by Nom Nom, personalised food made freshly for your dog. I've never had a dog, but friends and colleagues do, and I have seen up close how much a part of the family their pets are. And I've also seen how incredibly different every dog is. And I don't just mean different breeds, I mean each individual dog has a totally different personality, and Nom Nom knows that. It knows that dogs have different characters, different temperaments, and different tastes. So what Nom Nom does is deliver different food for every dog. It's all freshly made dog food. It's all made with wholesome ingredients, made from nutrient-packed recipes designed by board-certified veterinary nutritionists, and Nom Nom has already delivered over 40 million of them to dogs. Delivery is free, and there's also a money-back guarantee on your first order as well. Go right now for 50% off your no-risk 2-week trial at trynom.com/AppleInsider. That's spelled trynom, trynom.com/AppleInsider for 50% off. trynom.com/AppleInsider. And our thanks to Nom Nom for their support of the Apple Insider podcast. But why wouldn't you travel with Vision Pro? I mean, there's the great strange bag to carry it in and everything.
Well, I've got a review about that coming out as we record, and I have a lot of opinions. It's a good storage case. It's not a good travel bag. But yeah, read that review if you want all my opinions, because we've spent a lot of time on Vision Pro already. But no, I'll definitely say iPad isn't going anywhere. Vision Pro isn't the iPad killer. I mean, it's the closest thing we've seen. Android certainly didn't do anything to kill iPad. But it's interesting to try and confront this, because Vision Pro's made me more of a Mac user again, because now I just have the Mac in my environments. If I need to edit a photo, maybe I'll do it in Photomator and Vision Pro, but maybe if I need to do something more intense, I'll open Pixelmator Pro on the desktop of my Mac inside of Vision Pro, right? Like, there's use cases there, and I do plan on traveling with it. Like I said, sitting in a hotel room getting work done, like if I had to do a shift in a hotel or at a friend's house or something, I would probably pull out Vision Pro and work from it. But if I'm more casually traveling, if it's a day trip, or I don't need, or if I'm going to plan on sitting in a cafe or the lobby of a hotel, I'm going to take my iPad. I'm not going to take Vision Pro, at least not yet. It just doesn't seem socially correct, and it also feels like I'm going to get mugged. So
yes, I think that last bit definitely, but I have been conscious that it feels more socially acceptable. I mean, there are very fine lines here, but more acceptable to have an Apple Vision Pro than a MetaQuest on your head as you walk around. I mean, am I just imagining that? You see more of it on TV, you see more people doing it, and it doesn't look as absolutely peculiarly stupid as it does with a MetaQuest. I might be being unfair there about MetaQuests. Or is it just you convince me so much?
Well, just to close on Vision Pro talk, I will say, now that we've seen Apple Vision Pro, I can see where this is in 5 years, design-wise.
Yeah.
It's it's going to be a closer form factor, closer to, like, think of a rubber seal of a swim goggle, wrapped around an aluminum frame that sits over your nose and face, with a strap that wraps behind your head that's much lighter, that no longer needs the support. This thing's just going to get lighter, faster, better, and I think the battery thing is going to stick around for several generations. If you guys think version 2 is going to get rid of the battery pack, don't count on it. I think this is just going to be part of it. Honestly, if we're aiming for glasses, the battery pack's always going to be part of this, at least until we figure out fusion for glasses or something. I don't know. It's too much weight and too much space to be dedicating to a headset Apple expects you to wear for hours at a time.
I don't remember the last time I was this obsessed about some Apple hardware. I mean, there are certain Macs, yes, and all this stuff, and the iPhone, yes, but this degree of detail absorbing me, because I would normally have said I'm a software kind of guy. And actually, this seems like a good time to bring up the fact that we're hearing more and more about iOS 18 basically becoming AI-driven entirely. Have you any thoughts about software, or are you down the line hardware guy?
Well, so I think they go hand in hand. Of course, like Vision Pro has its Vision OS, and I think Vision OS is even more interesting than the hardware itself. And I don't think enough people are talking about it. Just every decision Apple made in Vision OS. But here you are making me talk about Vision OS again.
Sorry about that. Okay.
I'm sure everyone is going to be writing to us saying, please stop. But I will say iOS 18 and the associated releases, the new macOS, tvOS, I'm seeing a lot of rumor suggesting like this is it, guys. This is the AI release. Look at all these new frameworks they're releasing in GitHub, where you can animate a thing or whatever. Calm down. We're going to get something like AI. Absolutely. And Tim Cook is hyping it up, so it's going to be a consumer-focused thing. It's not going to be hidden in the background like autocorrect was. But it's still going to be kind of like that autocorrect. There's probably going to be a way to edit your photos by telling, your assistant or a button, like a text dialogue, what you want the photo to look like. Will you be changing reality? Probably not, because Apple likes their naturalistic things. But there's going to be APIs. Apple's probably going to have its own large language model that developers can tap into, and that is where things are going to get a little silly. We're going to see image-generating apps and things like that, and we probably won't have to pay for it because it's Apple, and you pay for things through the hardware. Maybe you get more queries or something if you're a Apple One subscriber. Who knows? But I think this is going to be one of those things where people are expecting a chatbot, and they're going to get disappointed. It's not a chatbot. We're going to get tools in iWork that let you tell it what kind of keynote slide you want to see and get you started down the path to making the thing. Or you can tell it, hey, see this object, make it animate like it's flying around the room, and then like it can fly around Keynote without you having to draw the animation lines yourself. Like, there's going to be stuff like that, I'm assuming, and I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be flashy, and there's probably going to be some cool iMessage trick stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
But it's hard to expect some big flashy thing like an operating system run by AI is what people are expecting, and that's just not going to be the case.
No, you heard me exclaim when you said about iMessage. Every year, there's such a focus on messages because it's obviously so popular. And I'm wondering what in the world can they do each year. And usually it's let's have more stickers, more emoji. But this year,
AI-generated stickers.
Well, there you go. That's totally turned me around. I will use those in my writing
along
all
with
the
your
time.
Emoji. Your favorite.
Do you know, I woke up this morning with that great song that was written in emoji in my head. Yes, face palm. Yeah, okay. This
you joke,
week,
but I guarantee you there's a song that the title is emoji.
Yeah, I'm not really. When people can sing emojis, they're into. Thing is, the other day,
artist
somebody
formerly known as Prince.
Yes. Oh, very nice. Good point. The other day, somebody sent me a message with 4 emoji in it, and I had the impression that it was a compliment, but I couldn't decode it at all. And I'm thinking, the whole point of these things is that they're instantly understandable. And there's here, I mean, what? I blew it up to larger size in case I was missing a fine detail in one of these, and I wasn't. So in the end, I kind of, I actually responded. I said, I see, and then got out of the conversation quickly for it. But yeah.
So are you excited about AI coming to iOS 18? Do you currently employ any kind of these quote-unquote AI tools?
Well, kind of. I use a thing called whisper transcription a lot because for so many years, 30 years, I've been recording interviews originally on tape cassette and then winding them, recording and writing down every word and every syllable. And the pain of that is now just gone. Since Otter AI a couple of years ago, started using that, and now Whisper on my Mac itself. It's fantastic. Just whack the recording in there and let it do its stuff while I have a cup of tea. AI for that is great. I mean, it's not perfect. Of course, no transcription is perfect, but it's amazing. I'm very pro on that. But
I can't go an episode without mentioning that AI is the dumbest name that's ever existed for this technology. Anyone who knows better, it's machine learning. It's always been machine learning, and that's existed for going on decades now. I mean, the original Apple keyboard had machine learning in it to detect where your thumb was going. The Photos app can recognize your pets. That's machine learning. AI is just a fancy way of saying it because machine learning is just not as sexy of a name, I guess. But I will say these tools are exciting. I want to see what they can do, and I want to see what a company like Apple can do with them. And I'm excited because it's Apple, and I know that's a fanboyish thing to say, but it's just one of those things where I'm so bored by what I've seen. I'm not impressed by, like, the image generation stuff is neat. I like seeing what people do with it. I have no interest in pursuing that myself. Kind of like with there's a video game called Little Big Planet that came out on the PlayStation 3 where people could generate their own worlds. I had more fun walking around other people's worlds.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ever make my own. And I like the idea of the tool. I hate the idea that it's basically stealing everything on the internet to make it happen. And so it's a very awkward thing. I want to see what Apple does to make this work on their end, because I guarantee you Apple will be releasing things that look similar to other products. It's still not going to be a chatbot, but it's going to be analogous in a way that they're able to say, see, we did this too. But again, in that Apple way that they love doing. So
I have hopes that they will do it right. That we'll look back and think that's how it should always have been done. I'm conscious I've interviewed AI artists long before all this was going off with ChatGPT, and it's very much all of them were doing such different things, and they all ended up saying that it was like another paintbrush for them. Their art was theirs, and they used this tool. And I was thinking of that because Adobe released something last year or the year before, that AI generated images, and so I generated an image in it, and it was pants. It was just astonishingly awful, and that's got to be on me rather than the software. So I think the assumption that AI can do wonders and we'll all be out of a job is not there. But
here's an example that I think people can wrap their heads around, literally. Panoramic photos. They used to be a task and a half. If you wanted to take a literal panoramic photo in real life with a digital camera, you would have to get a tripod and make sure that you didn't accidentally move it too far up or down or anything, and painstakingly make sure you take every photo, or even just take extras to make sure they overlap enough, and then go to software and hand stitch it together.
Yes.
And now it's just a mode on your phone.
Mm.
That is machine learning, right? That is AI. And it is a powerful, amazing tool. And here we are taking panoramic photos, and we're able to look at them in Vision Pro and all this grandiose clarity and whatnot. It is very beautiful, and it's only going to get better. And here I am talking about Vision Pro again. But
I was thinking that all roads lead back to Vision Pro, but it's a great example of machine learning that I had not even considered. Yes.
Yeah. So
Okay.
if you're wondering what can this stuff do for me, well, just remember that once upon a time, panoramic photos didn't exist in a way that we could do it easily. It was a lot of work. HDR photos is another example. Manually stacking images, a lot of photography stuff, but also just look at the computer itself. I mean, it was mostly an invention of necessity, but when we first got it pointed at us through marketing, it was replace your typewriter. You no longer need ink or a ribbon or paper. You just put it. It's all on this display. And I think as technology replaces the tools that we have in our life, it may be a little scary at first, but I think it makes us better at what we do, and it enhances the work that we can perform. I just, again, there are some moral issues with, oh no, they're stealing everything on the internet to make this happen. Google, this monolith who wants to suck in all your data. Facebook, same deal. They've created these tools using that stuff that, honestly, I kind of feel vindicated now, because I was always the crazy person saying, delete your Facebook. They're this nasty, scammy thing, and install an ad blocker, block all the Facebook buttons. They're tracking you across the internet. It's so greedy, so weird. Why are they doing this? And here we are. We're seeing the fruits of that labor, and all of this. What would you call intellectual property theft? So, yeah, we'll see where it all goes. But I'm excited to see what Apple does in this field, of course.
Sorry, I laughed there, and that's a rude thing to, because you said something serious. It's just where you said the way you said intellectual property there reminded me. This is really obscure, but Aaron Sorkin's Sports Night from 1999, 2000. There's a moment when one of the characters says, "The intellectual property police are calling up my butt," and it's just. In context, it's funny. I'm not sure where Sports Night is streaming, but I'll find a link to it somewhere.
We've got a couple minutes here for a quick shotgun round of some news, if you want to throw anything.
Well, actually, what's on my mind is, did you watch Jon Stewart return to The Daily Show?
Yes, I watched it.
Was it any good?
Oh, it's if you like Jon Stewart, it's him. Especially if you like the Apple TV Plus version of him, because it's very old him, and he likes to point out how old he is on a regular basis. Right. But the episode, of course, was very political, because he's brought back with the sole purpose of covering the election every Monday from now until the end of democracy, or the election, whichever happens first.
Wait, you've got an election in America?
No way, no. You haven't heard? Okay. But no, it was a good episode, and he did a good job. I think people need to cool it. It's a comedy. It's comedy news. It's supposed to rail against people, making fun of the current president and the previous one. It's kind of the point.
Yes.
Anyway, I've seen a lot of commentary around it that just kind of make my eyes roll, and I'm just like, don't take yourself so seriously. But people were. I had a couple people asking me about, like, so what does this mean about the TV show? Did he really leave over Apple not wanting him to talk about AI in China? He had an opening line where he's like, we're going to talk about China. We're going to talk about AI. And people are like, see, look, he wasn't able to talk about that with Apple. It's like, those are the topics of the day. That's just what everyone's talking about. It came to light in a CBS interview, and this is the most we're ever going to get, but I think it makes sense to me. He and Apple, again, we know they parted ways amicably based on the initial report of his departure. But now we kind of know why. Apple was starting to get concerned, it seems, about legal issues. defamation lawsuits. I mean, he definitely pushed that line in the first 2 seasons of his show, especially that second season where he was basically showing the ineptitude of certain senators and governors and stuff like that on television. He would record these interviews and corner them and make them say ridiculous things on air, and it was great entertainment, but it was also, oh no, lawsuits.
Well, that's the thing. Actually, Apple has no lawyers at all.
No,
no experience in lawsuits.
Think they're
or
just trying. I think it's just because all the divisions are their own thing. But I think it's just one of those. We would prefer you to be a news program and cover these topics that need to be discussed, but in a way that you're not going to get sued, because him getting sued means the show's getting sued, means Apple's getting sued, and it all comes downhill. So his comment on CBS, I'm pulling a lot from one sentence, but his sentence was basically, Apple didn't want me getting in legal trouble, was what his statement was. And I'm reading into it. It makes a lot of sense. It gets back to, if you rewind forever to when I was discussing why I think they actually parted ways. It's still that he wants to get into things in a way that are antagonizing and get to the point. And sometimes, especially in politics and especially in this world we live in, the only way to do that is to make people angry. And I think Apple was looking for something a little less controversial. Maybe we need that controversy, but I don't think it's Apple's job to be that voice. It would be nice if they chose to do that, but if they choose not to, that's perfectly within their right. So, yeah, I think Stewart just wants to be on a bigger stage, on the biggest stage, and The Daily Show is a fairly large stage. A lot of people watch it. It's pretty huge, and he gets to do what he wants to do, which is try to point out the flaws in American democracy in a way that's humorous but informative and keeps people on their toes as we head into a very important election.
Wild to think that it's got a bigger reach now, because I still remember Oprah Winfrey saying the reason she was on Apple TV was 1 billion devices, y'all, some phrase like that, and 1 billion devices is not enough, I suppose, if people don't tune in.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still a subscription service. You still have to pay to watch. And I would say that like Apple TV Plus is probably doing fine, but again, when you're comparing yourself to Netflix, which is in every device on the planet, yeah, it's kind of a tough compare.
Actually, I realised I was just going to completely skip this. I don't know what you just said there that put it in my mind. Something about controversy and legal disputes. As a man I'm in Europe, but I'm not in the European Union because Brexit, England, all that stuff. We have the whole thing going on here now that Apple has escaped being called a gatekeeper by the European Union, specifically for iMessages. So it won't have to open up to third-party people. It won't have to do anything. It's still going to. It's still going to support RCS, but the EU says, yeah, you're fine, whatever.
Yeah. They were never going. They were just going to leave. Apple's threat was, we're just going to. Your market's so small, we're just going to stop iMessage from working in Europe rather than open it up to whatever they wanted to do. And I think the EU said, okay, never mind. we're not gonna force that.
I'd heard that argument a lot about some weird things that Britain, specifically on its own, was trying to do. Not that it was the EU-wide, because WhatsApp and Apple both told the UK Parliament, we're gone if you do this. Basically, a very silly thing to do is cracking open end-to-end encryption just for the good guys kind of thing.
Yeah, but America's been through the same thing, and it usually falls apart eventually because it usually happens in this order, and it needs to happen in a different order. But most world governments think they just come across a complaint. Maybe someone's filed a complaint with their office from a human being who doesn't know any better that says, hey, I hate that iMessage is this closed system. And then they're like, hey, I hate that too. And let's write some legislation. I don't understand the technology behind it. And then it gets high enough that the FCC has chairman on their, whatever you want to call it, but it's an FCC chairman who should know, communication standards. It's kind of in the title. Out here spouting rhetoric that you would see in a 9 to 5 Google forum about iMessage versus green bubbles and he didn't even seem to understand the difference between SMS and iMessage and FCC chairman. So again, these government officials, they make all these laws and things and try to get bills passed, and then Apple and these technology companies come in and say, that's not how any of this works. We can't do it that way. Try again, basically. And they have to either change legislation or give up on that legislation, which is usually the path they choose because they just really don't understand what they're asking for when they ask for it.
But they put all that effort into finding the name for bills of things that spell out, that are backronyms. There's got to be the Act for Blue and Green Bubbles. That's ABBA. So, anyway, okay, yes.
So
let's leave
one last thing. Actually, two last things. I can do this quick, I promise, because I know you got to go.
Is it about Vision Pro?
No.
I'm glad. Oh, actually, I'm quite disappointed, but okay.
Okay,
yes.
So one, if a HomePod... So you own HomePods, correct? But it's the original set.
Yes, it is.
If a HomePod with a display was released, would you be tempted?
No, because I'm shocked how little I use my HomePods. I'm looking at a HomePod Mini right now, and I keep forgetting that it's there. I only remember when I issue a command to Siri to my watch, and the HomePod across the room
so you know,
does it instead. Yeah.
I first, I will answer my own question. I would definitely buy this because it's an interesting product, and I would put one in my kitchen immediately. Second, I can make this about Vision Pro, and I will say that I have a stereo pair of the fancy Gen 1 HomePods in my office. When I'm using Vision Pro, I'm not using those because the spatial audio in this headset is so good that I would just prefer listening to music with the headset audio, where I can control it inside the environments rather than have an external device running the audio. Isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting to me. Oh, okay.
Now, of course, the bass and stuff from the HomePods are going to be better. It's going to be a better listening experience, but when I'm in the headset, I want all the audio sourced from it, and it's just so good at it that I don't miss the HomePods. Let me put it that way. They are still better audio, of course, because they're these giant speakers moving a lot of air. But let me tell you, the experience with the headset is so nice. But one last tidbit, because I just wanted to, I have it in here for a reason. Did you try out your Valentine's Day love or heartbreak playlist or radio stations?
That's a thought. I didn't try them both. I tried the love one.
What was your first song? Do you remember?
It was a Carole King song, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, which actually felt like it belonged more on the preparing to break up station.
That's funny.
What was yours?
I believe Carole King was my girlfriend's first song in the love playlist, which is very funny. But mine just I've seen a lot of people say it got it wrong. Mine were spot on. My love first song was Paramore. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically the one where they're saying, I don't believe in love, but only when it's with you. So someone knows which song it is. I don't remember the title of it, but Paramore, alternative music, love it. And then my heartbreak was My Chemical Romance, I Don't Love You. it was quite good. So if you haven't saw those stations, link in the show notes, go check it out in Apple Music. They're pretty clever.
Okay, let's just end this here by saying you've convinced me, I have to go sit outside an Apple store and wait for the Vision Pro, or talk to Mike Wortherly and be talked back out of it, and you have to go listen to Carole King's Tapestry album right away.
Of course.
Okay? That's important. Wes, thank you very much for putting up for me, interrogating you on this minutiae that I'm so interested in. I'm really grateful for that. Thanks also to our sponsors, Nom Nom and ZocDoc, and thanks to everybody for listening. We'll be back with wondrous masses of Apple news, all the exciting things that'll be happening possibly by next week. Bye-bye.